I'm Natasha Kaufman, and welcome to my podcast, Don't Just Talk, Say Something, Lessons on 20 Years of Business. Over the past 2 decades of running my public relations firm, NKPR, I'm so grateful to have met, worked with, and learned from so many talented industry leaders. And I'm so excited to be able to share their stories and life lessons with all of you on this podcast. Now a household name, Caitlin Cronenberg is one of the most talented artists I've ever had the pleasure of working with. Her photography and directing work have been published in the world's most established publications and festivals, like Vogue, W, Harper's Bazaar, Drake's album cover, and TIFF, just to name a few. And even though she's worked with some of the biggest brands and the most famous faces, Caitlin still manages to be one of the kindest and most loyal people I know, and I'm so proud to be able to call her a friend. On this episode of the podcast, we discuss why taking risks are always worth it, why without fear there isn't growth, and Caitlin recalls one moment on the red carpet she will never forget. Here's our conversation. When I think back to the last 20 years of my career, you are one of the first people that comes to mind, truly, because we met. I'm gonna say, was it 15 years ago?
It has to be.
Yeah,
at least, yeah.
And I remember in your first book. Do you remember your first book?
Yeah,
of course you do.
Yeah,
Poser. I have it actually on my coffee table, and I remember that book, and when we met for the first time, I was like, this is a girl that's going to have a huge career. I knew it. But also, you were, from the very beginning, very clear on who you are. And I feel like in a world right now when so many young girls are trying to be what they see on social media, and they're not honing in on their own superpower and what makes them unique. You are the opposite of that. Tell me, how that even came about. How did you become you?
Well, it's a loaded question, but I really think it started in high school. And I can almost point to certain experiences that I had in high school that kind of let me understand myself a little bit better. I was not a popular kid, ever. Not in elementary school, not in high school when I started. And I remember meeting this one amazing girl. She showed up at my high school in grade 9, and we became instant friends. And I went to an all-girls school, and all the girls were getting into drinking and smoking and boys, and we were 14, 13, and I was not ready. I just legitimately could not handle that at that stage in my life. I still like playing board games and watching movies and having sleepovers, and so I met this wonderful girl who was new. And we became really good friends, and we would have, movie night, board games, sleepovers, everything that you feel that you want to still do while you're kind of exiting your childhood years. And then in an unbelievable turn of events, she became very ill and passed away after March break of the first year I knew her. So I had known her less than a year. But what that really taught me was I don't have time to pretend to be someone I'm not. She was so authentic, and she always knew herself. And it just really taught me to seek out the people who are going to understand me for me, not waste time trying to make myself someone I'm not, and that there are enough people in the world who will, rally around me for who I am and that I can support as well. And my parents, they were the same, and they've always been the same. And one of the things about watching my dad work is that he would never compromise his art for anybody. So coming from a teen drama, finding myself into a career, I really wanted to bring that thread through and say, now that I'm working and creating my own art, it will always be the art that I want to make. And I'm never going to let anybody tell me not to make it. And if they don't like it, that's fine. Everybody's entitled to like what they like and feel how they feel. But I don't have room for people to try to shut me down.
I mean, I love that. And it is interesting because a lot of parents, and I shouldn't say a lot, but I've seen parents stifle their kids because they want them to go into a direction that they feel is more appropriate. Mm-hmm. And that is true. Your parents never did that.
No.
They always supported every sort of move that you made career-wise. They were there every step of the way.
Yeah, I mean, I remember having a lot of friends whose parents were doctors or lawyers and hoping that their kids would follow in their footsteps. And I guess I luck out coming from a family of artists because they're not able to say, well, you can't make a career as an artist because that would be hypocritical. But, my parents always said, you can be a lawyer if you want, you can be a doctor if you want, but just do your best. And, my mom always said, if you want to be a garbage collector, you can be a garbage collector. Just be your best version of yourself doing it and be kind to other people. And that's been, how I've been kind of trying to navigate my career, and also trying to raise my kids. Is just saying, like, please be kind to other people. Like, that's the basis of all of this that we're trying to do here.
I mean, that is you. From the moment that I met you, if I think of sort of the one of the big words that obviously exemplifies you, it's kindness.
Thank you.
And loyalty. We've worked on so many different projects together. One of the first ones I remember was for charity. It was for Artists for Peace and Justice, and it was Toro After Dark, if you remember. And that was with Chris Baretti, and he owned that New York Times archive. And I remember bringing the idea to you and saying, would you be interested in working on this? And it was one of the first times you did an exhibit like that.
Yeah.
And, what I love about you is your response is always, okay, let's do it. Like, it's interesting with this podcast because I'm finding the common thread is about the importance of showing up. Mm-hmm. And you always do. And, tell me a little bit about, your memory of that. That particular event and putting that together. I
mean, I remember sitting in your office for that first meeting and not really knowing what you were going to talk to me about and feeling really excited. And, we'd known each other in a more ships passing kind of way. And this was the first real collaboration that we were going to get to do. And I remember sitting in your office being like, I get to do this? Like, what an amazing opportunity. And I can't remember what year it was. It was a while ago and I was young and, it
was 11 years ago, I think.
Yeah.
Because APJ is in its 13th year, and it would have been one of the first times we did that. So 11 or 12 years ago.
So long ago, and, really just very much at the beginning of my career, and having not had an opportunity to curate something and, put my name out there in a different way. And, I had shot a lot of events back then and doing that kind of work more than the kind of work I'm doing now. And I just remember wanting to get into real detail about how to put it together, spend time really thinking about each image and creating the frames for them, and at the event just feeling like an immense sense of pride that we had pulled it off. I mean, everything that I've ever done with you, we've pulled off.
We've always pulled off.
Yeah.
I mean, we would work our asses off. Like, I think with that one in particular, even I just remember going, you were up till 3 or 4 in the morning one of the nights because the night before we were setting up.
I think so,
and you were still working. But that is an interesting point too. You can't become successful without hard work.
Yes.
People think that, and I think social media creates a little bit of that facade that you can be an overnight success. Sure, it takes you 15 or 20 years, but sure.
Yes. You can be overnight that's the thing that people see, they see it overnight. Yeah. But I mean, that was always the thing that I admired the most about you when we met, just to turn this love fest back to you, is that what you built, and now of course 20 years later it's thriving as it always has been and growing. But I was always like, this chick is a badass. She built this whole thing, and every time we would have a meeting you would come out with these ideas, and I was like, this is why. Because you always work, you always have great ideas, and you surround yourself with the right people who understand what you're trying to achieve, and just build. And that's something that I've taken, that lesson of trying to really build something, but knowing how much work goes into it. And it's the same now. I never stop working. I can't stop. I have an addiction to productivity and to creating things. And sometimes, it's exhausting. And now with kids and husbands and life and stuff, it gets to be a lot. The time I spend actually working, but it feels so good. If every success that you have, why you're having it, right? You've worked for it, you've earned it, you've built it from nothing. And that's what I've always wanted to achieve as well. Is I don't want anyone to say, well, she was handed that, or this came easy because of this. And sometimes with my dad being who he is, people have hinted at the fact that maybe things come more easily to me because of that. And it just motivates me to work harder and show them that I'm, trying to achieve what I am on my own merits. Again, like people can think what they want.
For sure. It really doesn't even matter. I know one of your goals was always to direct, and now you have an opportunity to do that.
Yeah.
You're going to be directing your first film.
My first feature film, hopefully this year. I mean, COVID definitely knocked back our schedule a little bit. But the plan is to shoot this summer, which would be insane. So we're funded. We're in the casting process now. It's so exciting. It's been 2 years that I've already been working on this project. I didn't write it, but I'm
so proud of you.
Oh, thank you.
No,
I'm so
amazing.
excited.
Wow.
It's going to be so much fun.
It just goes to show that if you are clear on the direction you want to take, the choices you're going to make to get there are the right ones. Mm-hmm. Whether, it's a combination of things. Surround yourself with the right people, have a positive attitude, work your ass off, and make sure that you're balancing all that because you have a family, you have 2 kids, you have a husband. We've gone through so many, when I think of you, I just think of all the really special moments. I was at your wedding. I remember holding Wolfie for the, he must have been maybe 4 weeks old or 5 weeks old. You brought him to the office. Just so many special moments. But I'm going to ask you, and then I'm going to tell you mine, which is more funny, special but funny. It's probably not special, but it's funny. What's like sort of the one moment that comes to mind when you think of us?
It has to be, it was after a TIFF party, and we were here. We all came back here, and we were eating candy and standing around in the kitchen island and just
Didn't we have Arcade Fire here? Was
maybe.
that the day that we?
No,
had
this was that maybe was a different night.
Okay,
this was it was just I think my husband was there.
Yeah,
maybe his friends were there.
Yeah.
We were hanging out.
That's true.
And just this most casual, fun, easy, happy candy eating, heels off, hoodies on kind of thing, and just feeling like this was my safe place at the time, and just feeling so happy to be here and so comfortable. And
I think I remember you saying that too.
I may have said that. There's just a feeling of safety and comfort being somewhere with people that you love, and just wanting to kind of lean into that feeling. Like having tea with your mom, right?
I remember that. I actually very much remember that, because film festival is as fun as it is. It is exhausting, and it can be emotionally draining, because there's just so much happening. You and I are very similar. We're introverts.
Yeah.
And so when we're around too much energy, we need to hide or feel safe. We need our safe spot. So that makes perfect sense, because I remember that night, and I just remember coming home and feeling exactly that same way. Because we were together, we still had some people here, but it just felt
it was a
safe.
comfort thing. And just knowing that you can always come back here. And feel that way, and that always. I want to know yours though.
Well, mine is funny. Although, we've gone through, think about how many film festivals, portrait studios. You did a portrait studio just before you were about to give birth. I remember you were shooting. I
was 2 months out.
So many celebrities. You were 2 months out. You worked so hard. But it's more of a funny one. Do you remember? You were about to walk a red carpet. It might have been for Artists for Peace and Justice.
Oh my God, no, I remember this.
Do you remember this?
Yeah.
Okay. And you look gorgeous, and you're about to do some interviews, and you had gum in your mouth. And you were going to swallow it. And I said, don't swallow it. And I put my hand on it, just spit it out. Yeah. And you're like, I can't spit it out.
I spit my gum into your hand.
I said, no,
Oh
do
God.
it. I'm and it just, but you know what that is? It's you're you and I haven't seen you during COVID. And so, but it's when I saw you today, it was
it's no time has passed. Yeah.
It's there are those people in your world that are that sort of close to you. And also people that, love you, don't judge you, will always be there no matter what. And that's us. And so that moment just reminded me of exactly that. I'm no, spit.
I mean, that was also you were still working red carpets. You were headset, and you had your clipboard.
Totally.
And you were the one telling people when to go and take pictures. And I was brand new about red carpets.
It's a long time ago.
Not knowing how to handle myself or what to do. And then, spit my gum right into your hand.
I remember.
And then we were bonded forever.
We
from
did
that
bond
moment.
forever. Well, you were new. That would have been like a good 13, 14 years ago, I think. And I know for me, I felt this need to hold you close.
Yeah, you were teaching me.
Yeah,
like
I always felt that.
Because I'm shy. I'm an introvert.
You
Like,
were shy.
I love the feeling of putting on, a beautiful dress and a face of makeup and some heels and stuff, but that's not my natural state. I'm a sweatpants and bun kind of gal.
Well, you do it well. You do it all well. I've loved watching you grow in your career, but I've loved watching you grow in your personal life with your family. I want to end sort of the podcast with, I've been asking this question. Is there something that you want to ask me that you've never asked, or something that you want to know that you don't know? And it's just one of those things that pops up where I've asked some people that, and I'm like, that's a really interesting question.
It is a really interesting question. I'm going to ask, how did you know that you wanted to be in this industry? And how did you step in? How did you step in? Where was the place you started?
So I didn't know, I guess I thought I wanted to be in this industry when I realized that it's actually PR people that control a lot of the stories. Mm-hmm. And so at first I wanted to be a journalist and a writer, but I realized very quickly that you're told what to write. You're not actually in control of what you can write. Yeah. And so with PR, I learned quite quickly that, we actually get to control the stories, mm-hmm. And the narrative, and how something is perceived. And, couple that with when I started my company, I realized, it's my company. So I get to pick and choose who I work with and what I work on. So then when you are able to control that, then you're able to actually put a lot of good out into the world. Yeah. And so 20 years later, I still pick and choose who we work with and what we work on. And therefore, the stories that we put out there, I feel somehow, benefit, mm-hmm. All of us in some way. Yeah. So I think it was probably when I moved back to Toronto from New York and got into PR that I realized, okay, we get to control the narrative. And so, yeah, that's a great question. But that's probably
it's like one of those things that you feel like I should know. Yeah. Why? I know the how, mm-hmm. but I didn't know the why.
The why.
But it makes sense to me as a person who also enjoys feeling in control of my situation. Yeah. It's hard to not be the one who, for certain personality types like ours, just to put yourself in a place where you're going to thrive and be comfortable.
What people don't realize is that they have the ability to actually control their own lives. Mm-hmm. It's just when you do that, that takes a lot of courage. Yes. You have to take risk, and there's fear in that. But I think what a lot of people don't realize is that you can't grow without a sense of fear.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Every time I step into something new, I am fearful, and I spiral into this feeling of being out of control, which I don't respond well to. And then it just sort of motivates me to come back and bring it back to the center so that I can feel more grounded. But I think that the people who succeed in whatever field, it doesn't matter if they're, a president of a company or just doing their best, starting a small business, whatever that may be. The ability to bring it back to yourself and know that the thing that you're doing is the right thing for yourself, and just building from any point and feeling that control and taking the risk, like stepping off into the deep end is it's terrifying, but it's worth it. I remember every step of the way quitting, stopping shooting bar mitzvahs, and then, saying that I was no longer going to shoot film stills. And I had to scare myself by saying, I'm cutting off my income to push myself to a new realm.
For sure.
And at every stage of my career, I have had to do that to push myself into the next place and start saying no to things that I would have said yes to, just to make sure that I knew, okay, it's time to move forward. It's time to bring myself to the next level for myself.
Yeah, the power of no. Actually, it's. I wrote a Huffington Post article about this a while ago, where we think it's about saying yes all the time, but and that's important. But you also need to know when to say no, because that's when you're going to pivot.
Yes, exactly. And I can point to those moments, those specific conversations where I said, I think I'm going to stop working, like taking party photos. and feeling like, oh my God, that's like the entirety of my income right now. But then it just forces you to push forward and make the connections that you need to get to the next level. And it's always been worth it, even if it's been very hard. But I feel very confident now. It's easier a little bit to start to take those risks. But, making a feature film as a mom of 2 young kids is not something that I'm quite ready for. I mean, I know that about myself. I know it's going to be really hard to not be there because I'm so involved in their lives, but it will be worth it to me and to them. And I want them to see me working hard and loving what I do and setting that example for them so that they know that, their mom does that for them. And so that they grow up having like a sense of excitement about work. Because I do believe you can love what you do.
I mean, you should love what you do.
Yeah.
We do it for the majority of our lives. So
Exactly.
the goal is to not settle ever and to actually find what it is that excites you. And you're setting a great example for your kids.
Thank you.
Caitlin, thank you. This
Thank
is so
you.
great.
This is so lovely.
I truly have so much love for Caitlin and everything she stands for. She is authentic, talented, and an amazing mother and friend. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. I always love hearing from you. Feel free to DM me at Natasha and KPR, and don't forget to subscribe, share, and leave a review and rating. Until next time.